It's another Friday Night Photoshop. Hi, I'm Mike Leonard. Tonight we're going to talk about some transform tools, things that you find when you do Control T on your keyboard. Let's dive right in. So let's start with something kind of basic. Sometimes you might take a picture and things aren't exactly straight. Now, I know that there are ways that we can deal with this in Adobe Camera Raw, but tonight we're talking about transform tools. So let's just go do a Control T and see what some of the options are. First of all, what I need to do is Control A to select the entire image. And that's how you get the marching ants going around. Now if I do a Control T, I can right click and you see we've got some free transform tools here. There's Scale, Rotate, Skew, Distort, and Perspective, and there's even Warp. So in this case, I'm going to want the Distort tool, because what I'd like to do is to straighten out this image. Namely, if you look at the building here, this is definitely on an angle, and this is kind of on an angle. Now, if we do a Control R, this brings out rulers all around the image. So I can just click in the ruler and drag out a guide. And I'm going to put this right in the middle of the edge of this building. You see how this building is over this guide on this side and it's on the other side of the guide on this side? We're going to be fixing that. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And I just split this down the middle. So I'm not going to have this all the way to one end. I'm not going to have it all the way to the other. I'm going to put it somewhere in the middle, just like that. Now, what I need to do is to stretch and pull this image so that this will line up and so that this will line up over here. So what I can do is come down to this little handle down here and click and hold, and if I just pull this over like this, and then if I take this handle and push it over like this, I've just lined that building up to be plumb. I'm going to do the same thing over here with this bottom handle. I'm just going to pull this over and then I'm going to push this in. You will have to do some cropping afterward. That's normal. And you may have to do this a couple of different times, just like that. If you'd like, you can even pull this down just a little bit because that got a little bit squished. So there we go. So now this is a little more plumb, and if I just hit this checkbox up here, that's going to commit that. Now I don't need these guides out here anymore because they help me to get this to where I want this. So if I go up to View and then go to Guides and then choose Clear Guides, this is how you get rid of the guides. And they're gone. I could fill this in up here, couldn't I? I don't have to crop, and I could do the same thing over here. A quick way to do that would be just to grab the spot healing brush and make sure that my brush is big enough to cover that entire area. And if I just click up here, then shift click down here, it's going to fill that in. And same thing here. If I click here, shift click here, and that's pretty much done. So now this looks a little more attractive in the sense that things are now plumb, they're now straight. Now I could also correct for the top part here if I wanted by stretching this up or down as needed to get it right. But sometimes just doing some simple tweaking like that can make all the difference in an image. And so this is Free Transform Distort. Let's do another one. So I'm looking at another image now, and to the eye this might look nice, but let's go see how plumb this really is. If I do a Control R, and again I'm going to pull out the rulers, and I'm going to put several of these right around the frame of this window. See, that side looks pretty good. This side over here is off just a little bit. I can also pull a guide down from the top, and if I pull this down, we see that the top is off just a little bit, and if I pull this all the way down to the bottom, that's off just a little bit. So I can tell that this needs to be skewed down just a little bit in this corner and over a little bit here, because when we look at the guides, You see how that's off a little? And if we look down here at the bottom, we're off a little bit there too. So to fix this, I'm going to do a Control A. I need to select what it is I want to work on. I could select just a portion, but that doesn't make a lot of sense for this because I want the entire image. Now I'm going to do a Control T, and you'll see it puts handles out here, and if I right click, now I can choose which of the free transforms I wish to use, and in this case again I'm going to go with Distort. And I'm just going to move this out. Now here's a tip. If you're moving something and you find that it's moving too fast, if you hold your button down on the Control key and then move this, you can get much finer resolution as far as being able to make these adjustments. And in this case, I just need to pull this over just a little bit to get the top of that window to be plumb. Oh, and I have to pull it up here, don't I? Because look at that. That's off just a little bit. So I just pull that up just like that. It's not too bad. And you see this is now plumb all the way around that windowsill. And that's proper. And now all I have to do is remove the guides. I'm going to click the rectangular marquee tool up here. That's kind of my home key, if you will. And again, I go to View. I could come over here and say, shut off the extras and that, but it doesn't get rid of the guides. Instead, we have to go to Guides and then Clear Guides. That's what we do. And now when we look at this image, this is now straightened out, and it is a minor adjustment, but all the difference it can make. So this is Free Transform Distort. Now I'm going to work with this image, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'd like to straighten this out because things definitely look a little out of kilter here. So the first thing I'm going to do is bring out my rulers. That's Control R. And I'm going to draw this out to the edge of this Coke graphic. And then I'm going to drag one over to the other side, finding something that should be plumb. And I'd like to put it in the middle. And that's pretty close. That's okay. And then maybe I'll pull one down and see if there's any sort of a line here. There is, to line that up. And let's put one down here at the base. And I'm going to put this like that. Okay. So this clearly shows that this is out of plumb. So again, I'm going to do a Control A for all. This gives me the marching ants all around the image. Control T to put it into the transform mode, and you see I've got these handles. But the specific one that I'd like to use here is the Distort again. We'll do some of these others in a moment, but Distort is the one that we're looking for. And we can start anywhere here. So what I'd do is pull this one over a little bit, and then maybe push this one in just to try and get that red to be somewhat straight. And then I'm going to pull this one down just a little and also over. And this one I'm going to pull over quite a bit so that right hand side is somewhat straight. Now I think I need to pull this side up. Yeah, just to get that top line to be plumb, if you will. And that doesn't look too bad. The lines here all seem to be lining up pretty nicely. So I'm going to say OK to this. Once again, I go to View, Guides, Clear Guides, and now I have some cropping I have to do, or I could just fill that in. But if I wanted to crop, a real simple way would be just to use this rectangular marquee tool. I'm going to bring this over, and maybe I don't want what's over on the right hand side there. So I'm just going to bring this right into here. You'll notice that lines up nicely because we straightened that out. If I go to Image and then Crop, there we've got that scene. Maybe I could crop a little bit here on the left side, but this cleans this up a little bit, doesn't it? And it just straightens things out, and to your eye, to me, it looks a little more comfortable. So now we're going to try a different tool, and this still falls under the free transform area. And in this case, it's a wide angle shot that I took here of Portland headlight. And the light is slanting a little bit to the right here, and that's not normal for this. So I'd like this to be straight up and down. So again, I'm going to go with the Control R, and I need to have some reference to go by, and I'm going to put this over here. This is kind of in the middle of the bottom of the base of this lighthouse, and I may have to drag another one of these over. But what I need to do is to really take the top part of the picture and drag it over in one direction. So a great way to do that is to use the skew command. So if I do again Control A, and that selects everything. Now if I do a Control T, that's for the transform tools. And in this case, I'm choosing skew. See, before I was using distort, but in this case, I'm really needing just to skew the top of the image. So if I grab this handle at the top and just pull this over. Now, remember I said I may have to put another vertical reference in there? So we can have as many of these lines as we want. So we'll just put this one in, and you see I went a little too far. I'd like the headlight to be vertical, and so if I bring this back just tight, there we go. That's not too bad. And I'll say OK to that. And now what I'm going to do is again go to View, Guides, and then clear the guides. And let's not worry about this side of the picture because we'll be doing some cropping here. But see what we've just done? The lighthouse is now looking straight up and down, and this looks a little more believable. So this would be the case where I might take the crop tool and maybe choose some known crop, say 2 to 3, or maybe I'd do something a little bigger. How about if I wanted to make an 8 by 10? And if I draw a box like this, and this is the good crop tool, we can move this around like this, and just double click, and there is a straightened Portland headlight that was taken with a wide angle lens that I just cropped into. But I used the skew command just to straighten this out. Now if I'd used the other commands to pull and push things around, it probably wouldn't look quite as good because all that we needed to do is just to move or bend the top of the picture over. That's all that needed to be done. So there's a great case where you might want to use the skew command to get something to be straight. Let's try some more things with free transform. This time I'll choose warp. I can take and bend an image around to maybe make it fill a scene a little better if I were so inclined to want to do that. Here I'm making the flower a little bigger, and I can pull this corner out just a little bit. And you see I'm really distorting this quite a bit. But maybe you might want to fill a frame, and there's one way you could do that. Now, there's some other ways you could do this, but this gives you the ability just to go in and move things around at will. In this case, maybe I'll pull this up a little bit. And when I'm done with this, you can see it doesn't look like it's been pulled upon that much, but it has been. I'm going to start fresh here with a new canvas. It's just 4 by 6. And now what I'd like to do is put some images onto this canvas. So I'll come over and choose this flower. And I'm going to undock this, and with layers open, I'm going to take this and put this onto my background. And I'm going to close this. Well, you'll notice that this is way too big for this background. So how could we change the size of this? Here's another way to free transform. If I just right click and choose free transform, you'll see this is showing me that entire image. If I just take and close this, bring this down like this to make it fit on that canvas, I've just sized that. And now that's fitting onto this canvas. It's 4 by 6. Let's put another one up here. So if I take and choose this flower again, let's say, and I'll open this, and I'd like to put this right next to that other one. So I'll just undock this. We know how to do that through layers. I'll throw this over here. We can close this. Now, if I simply right click and say free transform, if I zoom out using the mouse, look at this. I can squeeze this back down, put this right in here next to it. I'll turn the mouse wheel to bring this back up, and maybe I can get this to line up close enough like that. And that's not exactly centered, but you get the idea. Now, I've just very easily taken two images and I just put them on this background, and I just sized both of them on the fly to get them to fit here. And from here, I could do some other edits. I could go ahead and put, for instance, a stroke around this one if I wanted this black to not so blend in. Maybe I'd put a gray stroke around, and I would want that stroke to be on the inside, and it would want to be a heck of a lot smaller. Something like a pinstripe, right? Just like that. And maybe I'd like to put the same effect over on this one. So I'll just right click here and say copy the layer style, click on this layer, and just say paste the layer style. And now I've got the same stroke on both of these. And I could just use this move command to put these however I want to move these around on the frame. So I know I just did a little extra there as far as adding the stroke, but the concept is the same for using free transform just to resize something to get it to fit onto the canvas. So let's just see if we can end with something here that might be of some value. Let's open this, and my sensor was dirty that day. To clean that up. All right. So again, if I do a Control A, Control T, and then what would I like to do here? I could warp this and have a little bit of fun, whereby I make these pilings bow out a little bit. You can say, wow, that storm did a lot of damage. But you can see where you have a lot of ability to change a lot of things here. And you can move things around, and you can really distort an image however you are inclined to want to do. So there's just some free transform tools that you might want to work with on some of your images. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you for another Friday Night Photoshop.